T. You know what it is. Post up and take command. I, of course, am your Commander-in-Chief, Louie T. Thank you for joining me on this impromptu edition of the Command Post. So another week and another week of OTAs, the last of which will be voluntary. You know, the rest of these will be involuntary. They will be mandatory mini camps where all players, even ones looking for new deals, are expected to show up. So that is where we'll start today's episode and show where Terry McLaurin and Daron Payne were both absent. Now, Terry, not a surprise. That's something that we knew would take place. He's waiting on his new deal, and it's coming. A lot of you are still somewhat nervous about the situation with Terry and his contract. You're looking at DK Metcalf, and he's holding out over in Seattle. And we didn't think A.J. Brown was going to be traded, and look at what happened to him. And so, yeah, I understand. Devontae Adams gets traded. Tyreek Hill gets traded. A.J. Brown gets traded. Deebo Samuel wants out. And you're like, oh, my God, is Terry going to be the next one to end up on a new team? The answer is no. Nothing's going to happen there other than him getting his money. Again, that will probably happen mid to late July. However, he's not going to be at any of these camps that are voluntary. Now, Ron Rivera had some pretty strong words when he was asked at his presser today after practice about Terry and Daron not being at the OTAs. And he pretty much said, hey, no, they're not here this week. But when we start our mandatory minis, we expect them to be present. So, and I do think that's going to be the case. I don't see either one of those guys as players that will hold out. I don't know what they will do, as far as what they will actually participate in. I think they might be very selective as to what they do. They may do nothing. They may show up in the building, but have no intentions of actually participating on the field in any drills, which I would totally get. But just being there, showing good faith in the organization, that they're showing up, they're abiding by the rules. They don't want to be a distraction, but still wanting to get the deal done and not wanting to jeopardize their future by going out and working out with the team. So I see both of those guys showing up when these mandatory minis kick off, but they were not here for the last round of OTAs. So that was really minor. In OTA land, usually there aren't many topics of discussion that resonate, that move the needle. But, today, Jack Del Rio had a lot to say at the podium. I've talked about this enough on my podcast. So if you're looking for an in-depth reaction to Jack Del Rio and what was said, go to my podcast. I won't really expound upon that much more here. I'll just say that it's a distraction that's unnecessary, that doesn't need to transpire. I'm not here to judge, Jack Del Rio or try to put a muzzle on him. He's a grown-ass man and he has his opinions and he can say whatever the hell he wants to say. But I'm all about winning, and him voicing his opinion and causing an upstir, a stir, I should say, and an uprising, if you will, doesn't help this team. Him causing this dialogue to take place and players to have to answer questions about what was said is unnecessary. And for a team that already has 1,000,001 distractions off the field, you don't need another unnecessary one coming from within. Most of the distractions for this team, if it's not coming from Daniel Snyder as the source, they're from the outside that comes inside, okay? This is one that is self-inflicted, that is unnecessary, that doesn't need to happen. And so if you're Ron Rivera, you can nip this in the bud. He hasn't. I don't think he will. If you're Jack Del Rio, there's something called professionalism. He should try it. This is not the time nor the space for you to be pushing an agenda. This is about football, and that's what it needs to be. But that's nor here nor there. That whole Jack Del Rio situation really overshadowed, a topic that really a lot of people are starting to worry about. And that's Curtis Samuel. Never, ever trust a man with two first names who, along with Antonio Gibson were both on the side field just stretching because they did not participate. And we all know what the side field turned into last year for Curtis Samuel. It was his home away from home, the side field was. So we never want to hear that he's off on the side field stretching, because that's all he did last year was go off on the side field and stretch. However, it's June. And as I was talking about on the podcast, and I was talking to someone on social media about, it's June. And I'm not going to get worked up about a guy sitting out a round of or a day of. And Ron pretty much made it seem as if, hey, I'm not looking forward to him being back this week. He's like, I expect him to be ready next week when we kick off these mandatory minis. That's when I'll look forward to seeing him back on the field. So, and Ron always does this. He's always downplaying someone being banged up, especially Curtis Samuel. He did it all last year. Yeah, I expect him to be ready for such and such, and then he'd be, yo-yoing back and forth in the lineup. But it's June, man. I can't allow myself to get worked up about a guy missing a day of organized team activities on June the 8th. I just can't do it. And I'm going to try to be the voice of reason for some of you who are ready to panic. Like, oh shit, here we go again. Just relax, simmer down now. All right, pump your brakes and drive slow, homie. Drive slow, homie. It's June 8th, okay? If we get to September 8th and we're having the same discussion, then I will have alerts and bells and whistles and alarms going off. But right now, as we sit here, a full 3 months away from the start of the NFL season, I choose to exhale and just relax. All right? RELAX. Relax, as a wise man once told us to do. So it's not a big deal, okay? But I said this on socials, and I'll say it again. This is what happens when you have a tightly wound athlete, which is what Curtis Samuel is. He's a quick twitch, tightly wound athlete. These guys are what I call high maintenance individuals, high maintenance athletes. When you have a high maintenance athlete, he's always in the shop. Now, he wasn't this way in Carolina, and I don't know why he's all of a sudden this way now, but that was the narrative coming from Carolina is this guy's always healthy, and that wasn't the case last year. So now he's getting a bad rap. Somebody hit me up on socials and say, man, that 10 jersey is cursed. Get him out of there. I don't buy into curses or anything like that, but at the end of the day, 10 hasn't been good for whomever has worn it for a very long time. You may get a boost at some point, but ultimately 10's going to win. That's what it seems like around these parts, whether it's Robert Griffin III, whether it's Paul Richardson, or it's AGG. I think AGG was in 10. Was he in 10 his rookie season? I might be tripping. He might have been in something else. I feel like he was in 10 his rookie season. And then it was Curtis Samuel last year. But whatever the case may be, he's going to continue to wear number 10. And I think he's going to be fine. But, when you got a Range Rover, it rides smooth. It's a beautiful car. A lot of great features. But eventually, that bad boy is going to have some maintenance done to it. And not just any old mechanic can do the maintenance on this Range Rover. And not just any old parts are going to do for this Range Rover. Okay? It's going to constantly be in the shop for a little nick here, a little touch up there. And that's Curtis Samuel right now. Until he gets his act together from a health standpoint, this is what we're dealing with. But I think he's going to be fine. I'm not putting too much stock into it. And I'm at the point where we're in the off season, even into training camp. If this man feels the slightest twinge in his hamstring, if he feels the slightest bit sore, as was the case today, which is why he sat out, he was sore. Gibson was the one that felt tight in the hammy, which is why he didn't practice. If I hear of Curtis Samuel feeling sore or tight, you sit down. You sit down. Okay? No practice for you today. Okay? We're trying to avoid the yo-yoing that took place last year with him. So, I don't think it's anything to see here. All right, move on. Nothing to see here. You know what is interesting, though? I watch so many of these videos people are putting out with, the biggest winners and the 5 best performers in camp to this point. And I'm like, really? This is what we're doing right now? Like, it's camp. It's OTAs. What are we doing? However, you can't have players gain confidence at these OTAs and have that transfer over into training camp, which then bleeds onto the field in the preseason, and then you have a guy come out and ball. One of the positions that we are still a little bit uneasy at, but we feel a lot better with the drafting of Percy Butler. But remember, not only is Landon Collins gone, but also Deshazor Everett is gone. So there is a void at safety. You filled one of those voids with Percy Butler. There's still a void left on his team. Maybe, just maybe, Darrick Forrest is ready to fill the other void, the 5th round pick out of Cincinnati in the 2021 NFL draft. That was primarily a special teams demon at Cincinnati, but also played some free safety for them. He's a tremendous athlete. Can he take that athleticism and add smarts? Because one of my biggest pet peeves with him, poor angles, missed tackles, playing out of control. These were the things that really bothered me with Darrick Forrest. I saw a guy that was no more than a special teams player if he couldn't clean up some of the deficiencies that I saw on tape from him on a consistent basis while at Cincinnati. Sounds like he's taking a massive step forward to this point. He had a ball that he tipped in the air with a tremendous break by those who were in attendance. They said that it was a tremendous break on a ball that Carson Wentz threw over the middle of the field that he was able to get his hands on, tip in the air. Cole Holcomb ultimately picked it off. If Darrick Forrest is taking that next step, then there is no need for Landon Collins to be back here. Keep that in mind. And maybe that's what they're banking on, which is why they haven't called Landon Collins to this point. Even though Landon Collins has shown interest in wanting to come back, and there may be mutual interest. They may be just waiting, to see what happens with everything, and then they might call up Landon Collins. But if Darrick Forrest continues to improve and progress to the point where they feel comfortable putting him on the field in real game settings, which they were not comfortable doing last year, in games that meant something. He got some run at the end of the season when we either had injuries and didn't have a choice, or were out of the playoff hunt, but he didn't get meaningful snaps when the season was in the balance. So if they feel comfortable putting him in the game, on the field, early in the season when the season is still in question, that shows that they have confidence in him, and there's no need for Landon Collins at this current juncture. So it'll be interesting to see, if his emergence is enough to keep Landon Collins away and off of this roster. But if they aren't sure about him, and they don't feel like it's something that's sustainable, then Landon Collins may get a phone call. We'll see. But he's still available, and right now sounds like Darrick Forrest is making, and it's not just practice today. From what I've been hearing, this has been consistent for him throughout OTAs in the offseason. He looks like one of the more improved players on the roster to this point. Now, again, there are no pads on. You're not going at 100% full speed, and maybe things change once pads are put on and now players are playing at maximum speed. But as of right now, Darrick Forrest seems to be one of the few standouts that you can actually pinpoint throughout these OTAs, making a name for himself and potentially solidifying not only a roster spot. He's going to make this football team, even if it's just on the special team side of things, but maybe solidifying some playing time on the football field. That's a name to keep an eye on in year 2. And that's kind of why I'm so excited about the roster, is because not only are we looking at some of these rookies that we think are going to have an immediate impact, like a Jahan Dotson, like Fedarian Mathis, like Brian Robinson, like Cole Turner potentially, like Percy Butler. These are immediate impact guys that are going to play a significant amount of snaps in their rookie season. But I'm also excited about the year 2 guys. I'm excited about Sam Cosmi. I'm excited about Jamin Davis. I'm excited about Benjamin St. Juste and De'Ami Brown. I'm excited about these guys getting an opportunity. And now maybe even Darrick Forrest, a guy that was an afterthought in last year's draft. Maybe he's another guy we can get excited about going into the second year of his NFL career. So that's another reason to be excited about the roster. Some of these year 2 guys being a year more comfortable in the scheme and system, being a year more comfortable being in the NFL, adjusting to the speed of the game and what's being asked of them, and them having success now in their second NFL campaign. And then finally, I wanted to talk about this the other day, and I waited, and now I'm going to talk about it now. So Washington put out a schedule theme. So every home game that they have this season, and we'll take a look at that right now. Every home game that they have this season, including the preseason games, they've got a theme for that game. So as you look, you see all of the themes that they have for all of the home games. Commanders kickoff. It'll be the very first game, the inaugural game, if you will, for this team being the Commanders in week 1 versus the Jacksonville Jaguars. So, of course, that makes a big deal of week number 1. It's the Commanders kickoff. It's the first game ever in the history of the Washington Commanders. Week 3 against Philadelphia, we are all Commanders. So that'll be the theme of that game. We'll see what they decide to do there. I want to move to week number 7, home against Green Bay. So we're going to continue to have the alumni weekend, or as they like to call it, a homecoming game. I don't love the fact that you picked Green Bay to do that against. You could have done that against the Atlanta Falcons or a team that you maybe think you could beat. You do it against Green Bay, okay. I'm interested, however, and the reason I'm interested in this game is I want to see what they wear. Like, obviously, you can't wear the Redskins jerseys. They normally would wear the dark, burgundy with the plain helmets, but they would still have the old head logo on the sleeve. Maybe they just removed that logo and maybe put a W or something there, or maybe an old R on that sleeve or whatever. I want to see what they wear for the throwbacks in that particular game. I'm interested to see what happens there. Then I want to turn your attention to January 1st, week 17. Fan appreciation is week 17, but more importantly, they're going to honor the Hogs in that week 17 game, and they're going to name a new mascot in that same week/game. So my question is there a correlation between the Hogs being honored and you naming the new mascot in the same week? I think it's too coincidental. It's too much like right. It feels like this is going to be some kind of a hog, a warthog, a hog, something hog related that pays homage to the greatest collection of talent that this organization has ever had at one position on the offensive line with the Hogs. And I think that the mascot is going to be some type of hog. We'll see. I could be wrong about that, but it just seems too coincidental to be honoring the Hogs and having the name or the mascot be on the same week, the revealing of the new mascot. So that'll be interesting. And then, of course, week 18, rivalry week. We want Dallas. So hopefully that game means something. That's what's important there. But I wanted to ask you guys something as we wrap this show up. I wanted to ask you guys, if you had a chance to speak to Jason Wright, what would you ask him? Give me one question. I think I'm going to hit up this little meeting that they're having on Thursday night. And if I do go, I'll talk all about what I saw, what I heard, what was said on the live show Thursday night. But in the meantime, they're having a rebrand, like behind the scenes of the rebrand meeting. And I told you guys I was going to get season tickets. And so I did get season tickets. So I'm invited to this event. I'm going to go. And I think there's going to be a Q&A session where we're able to ask questions of Jason Wright and some of the people behind the content side of things in Washington. If you had one question to ask Jason Wright, what would it be? And I think I made a list of like 3 or 4 questions, but I want to know what you would ask him. And if it's better than the questions I've come up with, I'm going to ask him. And maybe I'll be able to get a one-on-one with him and ask him multiple questions. So leave it down in the comment section. Anything that you want to talk about in regards to what I had to say on this video and what you've heard surrounding his team, even if you want to go off on a tangent about Jack, knock yourself out, leave it down in the comment section along with a like. And if you haven't already done so, a sub to this channel. But also, I want to know if you had an opportunity to ask Jason Wright a question, and I may have that opportunity tomorrow, what would you ask him? Leave it down in the comment section. So that's going to do it for me, your man Louie T. I am a fan, a Washington fan, etched in burgundy and gold. My Washington spirit will never die. Washington spirit will never fold. Until we meet again, post up and take command. You guys have a good one, and I look forward to chopping it up with you guys on Thursday night, and we'll probably have a lot to discuss. A lot more than I thought we would this time a day ago. But in any event, you guys enjoy the rest of your evening, and I will see you tomorrow. Don't forget to leave that like. Don't forget to leave that sub if you haven't already done so. And don't forget to leave that comment. What would you ask Team President Jason Wright? Have a good night.
LouieTeeNetwork.